This is the third episode I've done with Mattia Gaffuri. Mattia is an Italian rider who rides for SWAT Club on the road and gravel. He's one of the best amateur riders in the world, has won some of the big amateur races, and made it to Zwift Academy twice, the finals. Mattia is a brilliant guy on the sports science side of things when you want to talk training science, and a wonderful guy to follow as he's really open about chasing the pro cycling dream. What it means to him, how hard he's tried, and being honest about what that's really like. He's a great friend to me, and I'm just a fan, so I love having him on and following all the stuff he does. Enjoy Mattia Gaffuri.
Just got
I
off the
just got
bike,
in
I
the door.
imagine.
Yeah, it's 5 hours, rain the whole time.
Oh,
Like I'm supposed to be looking into a camera now, and I've just had water sprayed in my eyes. You know when your eyes are just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
destroyed
Ah,
after
shit.
that, after how long in the rain? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, I can imagine.
How about you, man?
No,
What are
I'm
you riding
good.
today?
I'm good. Yeah, today it was just easy day, but I'm doing a big block because next week I have the Oberösterreich Rundfahrt, the like a stage race in Austria. So,
Yeah, a tour
you
of Upper
know,
Austria.
yeah, that one.
Oh, sick, man. Yeah, yeah.
So,
I've done this race a bunch of times. Good luck, man. Are you racing it
yeah.
with SWAT?
Yeah, we're racing there, and I think that's like the best race of the year for me because there is a uphill finish in the last stage. So yeah, trying to train as good as possible for that.
Yeah, yeah. No, dude, I totally know that stage. I mean, what? How far into it? I think it's like on that last climb. You got to wait like the first 2K or something like that, and then there's a right-handed hairpin, and then it gets steep right to the finish. That's where you go.
Okay,
You'll see it on the profile when you go.
okay,
You haven't
okay.
done it before though, right?
No, no, never, never. But I know it
Okay.
quite well because the Luca won 2 years ago, and I watched that finish many times. So Luca Vergallito, Altus in Zwift
Yeah, yeah.
Academy.
So he won it in 2023.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Last year it was the Tour de Titama guy, and then the year before it was Luca. So
Yeah. Okay, sick. Yeah, yeah. The last time I did that race was 2022. That was the race that I like rushed back after breaking my pelvis. When I was just like,
okay,
I'm racing in 4 weeks no matter what. That was the one. Yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome,
yeah.
man. Very cool.
We'll see.
What else do you have on for the season?
So after that, the Tour de Beus, which you know quite well because you won, right? That's
You're going to Canada.
yeah,
Oh, hell yeah. You better
yeah,
not you better not break my time on Megantic. I still have that KOM. I'm
yeah,
holding on
yeah.
to
I
that
know,
one
I
for
know.
life.
No,
It's
but
like,
yeah, we have
oh,
that
dude,
one.
that's sick.
And then after that, it's kind of more national races because yeah, the UCI calendar then it goes a lot to there are a lot of races in Asia, but we talked about that in the start of the year and nobody really wanted to go, so we prefer to stay here and do
Okay.
some like yeah maybe there are some one day UCI races close, and then apart from that it's I think only national races until maybe September, something like that. But the good thing is that I can do also gravel
Okay.
on the side, so I can do some UCI gravel one day races. So I think in the end it's not a bad calendar. To be a club team, it's been like really good so far. We have done plenty of UCI
That's
races.
awesome, man.
Yeah, yeah,
That's freaking sweet. I'm very cool, man. I'm such a fan. I love following all the stuff you put up.
that's good.
Okay, and here, just like help me right at the beginning of this. How long do you want a podcast for? Because I'll go all night with you.
Yeah,
It just helps me pace if I know how many hours you want to go.
I have
Are
two
we doing one
hours.
hour or three?
Then I have 2 hours. Then I have to go because yeah, I have a thing for dinner at like 20 something. But at 2 hour, I can give you the full 2 hours. So we can put in
Okay. All right.
a
Well,
lot
then
of
we'll
things.
dive right into it then.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Okay. We'll dive right into the stuff you actually want to talk about first, then, and then we can. I got a million questions for you. For
yeah.
like
No,
I
but
put that
also
thing on
the
Instagram, and everyone has a million questions of you.
yeah, also the things I wrote down. It was just to have like to not to forget to talk about that. But for me, it's yeah, we're gonna talk about anything you want.
Hell yeah. Okay. And just to be clear, this helps me so much because then it's like I don't have to prepare nearly as much. I don't have to do nearly as
Yeah.
much research. So I love it when people send me stuff they want to talk about. Okay. Well, tell me about Traka then.
Yeah. So, okay, just to give a bit of context about the activity we're doing with Squad Club, we
Yeah.
we made this club team because we could not. The idea was to take a bunch of elite guys who finished the U23s, so they didn't have a spot in the Evo teams because they only won U23s now, and we make like a competitive team to go and race UCI races. The problem is that like in Italy, if you want to make a Conti team, you have to take I think like half the team has to be U23 with UCI points. So actually like good U23s.
Yeah.
And so we could not make a Conti team. We just made a club team. But the idea was to go and race mostly international races. Like we did the 3 weeks in Greece. It was 1.2, 2.2, and then we did
Okay.
like we did 2 races in Norway that were UCI. Then the other guys were raced in also in Denmark. We went a little bit around Europe to do some UCI races, and we also have a gravel team, which is I think the main team because actually like our team is sponsored by Giant, and they wanted kind of a let's say factory team for gravel because they didn't have one, and they also gave it so that we could make a road team. But let's say the gravel is should be the main team, and so
Of
we are
course.
also trying to do like all the activity on gravel, and Traka is kind of the peak of the gravel season because there is also Unbound, but it's Unbound is more of a it's 10 hours, so it's a different race.
Yeah.
Like many World Tour pros goes there and they cannot win because it's just a different skill set. But Traka is definitely the highlight of the gravel season, and I think that like the race itself, it was like the level was super high. I did the 200, which is like it's
That's the
there is
crown
a
jewel.
debate. There is a
That's
debate
the real one.
between there is a debate of about which one is the main event because the 360 is considered the main one. The 360 is considered the main one by the organizers, but the 200 is the one with all the road
You
pros
guys are
and
nuts.
but no, I think and like you probably know them better than me.
You did well. You freaking crushed it.
There were plenty of
Well, I
mountain
only
bike
know Mads.
marathon. Yeah, the okay, Mattia was like another level. I think the whole gravel season was just
Yeah.
super strong. All the races he did, but the thing was that the level was super dense because I think at least 10 or 15 mountain bike marathon pros came there to race like
Okay.
to race the 200, and so like we started with 3 climbs like around 10 minutes, and I
Yeah.
thought okay, I can kind of destroy the field here, but nobody was
Yeah.
dropped, and then in the end I almost got dropped from like 15 guys because there was such a high level that
You go do your best 10-minute power, look around, there's 50 guys
exactly
left. You're like,
exactly
oh shit.
just like that. But then no, then everything came together quite well, and then on the there was like a longer climbs 4 hours into the race, and I was in the group with Peter Vakoc and Matt Beers, which was like
Yeah.
the second group behind the 3 guys who
Strong
then
guys.
went for the win. Yeah, and then I stayed with him the whole time until in the last hour there was a single track when everything like exploded. But at that point we were just doing like survival.
Okay. All right. Walk me through this because again, I've never done a gravel race and I've
Yeah.
just like it looks cool. It looks fun. How much is like the technical part of this? Because like like I can like when I did like I've done one mountain bike marathon race
Mhm.
here. Like I did the one in Riva. And it's like I can ride all this stuff. The biggest thing for me is I just don't have the forearm strength to hold onto the bike when these
Yeah.
guys are jumping down the trails. And then you do see the tech like the some of them have unreal technical skills. Like
Yeah.
you know when you do the thing where you like drift around a gravel corner, like
Yeah.
unclip one foot and drift around the corner a
That
bit and
thing.
slide. I can do that to like look cool. I
Yeah,
can
but
do it for like
not
2 meters
fast.
to like look
Yeah.
cool in training or something like that. Some of these guys are doing it full speed in the middle of the race. I'm like, holy shit, okay, that's
Yeah.
another level. They got some ridiculous skills here. How much of that plays into gravel racing?
I think it's gonna be. more and more important the more like, the level grows, because like last year, for example, I did a top 5 in a UCI race, and I lost like, it was like a really long descent. On a descent, I lost more than 1 minute from the front guys, but then I could always come back on the climbs. But now in
Okay.
track up, like on the descent,
Okay.
I was like, if I get dropped here, I'm done, because I cannot come back on a strong 30 guys group
Yeah.
alone. So it's gonna be more and more important. But um, like the thing is, it's never so technical that you get dropped, or you lose like so much time. But you can really see that the mountain bike guys on the descent, they're super relaxed, and maybe you are like super concentrated, trying not to make mistakes, and maybe you cannot eat,
Yeah.
you cannot drink, you cannot do, you have to go full gas out of every corner, and you can see they're just like cruising around. And then of course all those races are like really high kilojoule races, so in the end everything matters. Every little effort you have to do extra, it in the end you pay for it. So I think that's where the technical stuff really comes into play. Like the better you are, the less energy you spend, basically. So like, yeah, I think that's why it's really
How much
important.
how much does like the bike setup matter? Like is it just like everyone rides like 40 mil tires or 45 mil tires and then it's just like more or less tread depending on how rough it is? But is the bike pretty much the same for all the races?
I think in gravel it matters a lot because you don't have the suspensions. So basically the tires is the only suspension you have. And that's why like the tire size is going up and up. And now almost everybody is on mountain bike tires for the let's say rough races, because then you also have different set. You have some races like the UCI. You have like two circuits in gravel. There is the UCI and then the gravel herd. The UCI is like strade bianche with a little bit more gravel, and then the gravel earth is like you have to
Okay.
work your bike in many points. So it depends on the race. But a race like Traca, I think almost like half of the pro peloton was on mountain bike tires. So it's faster, and also you can really take a little bit more speed on the descent without risk puncturing and that kind of stuff.
Okay. How do you have to like aside from the technical parts of it,
Hmm.
is your gravel bike set up just like your road bike? Like how much time do you have to spend training on your gravel bike to be able to,
Yeah,
because that was the biggest thing for me. Like more than the technical stuff, anything like that. Like I tried to set up my mountain bike as close
yeah,
to like my road position as I could, and I'm just like, man, I can do like at most if I'm going as hard as I can, I can do like 80% of what I can do on
yeah,
the road
yeah,
on the mountain bike here. Like that was the thing that killed me more than anything because the day before the race, I did like the pre-race efforts, whatever, on my road bike, and I'm like, I'm fucking flying. This is amazing. Like I got diamonds in my legs. This is gonna be great. And then you go on the mountain bike, and I'm like, what the hell? I'm trying as hard as I
yeah,
can here, and I can't. Like, I think I gave everything I had in that race, and I looked at the power file after. I'm like, that's like an average training ride on my road bike. What the
yeah,
hell? Like this sucks, or I suck at it. The sport is very cool. They're the coolest group of people to be around. I got a lot of work to do there.
yeah, yeah. No, no, I agree, and that's 100% one of the first points that I made. Like in February, I did a gravel race, even if we were supposed to do like a bunch of road races before. And in theory, this season I didn't want to do a lot of gravel, but then we did this race in February, and I realized like, okay, I'm good, but I was like 25th, and the level was basically the same as Straka, or maybe even a little bit lower, and I was like close to the top guys, but not quite there. And I made like a bunch of points that I need to improve this, and many were on the technical side, but one of the main points was like I have to bring the position as close as possible to my road bike, because otherwise I know that I will not
Yeah,
train on that bike, and that's the main part. And so
yeah,
actually, like it's difficult because the gravel frame is normally like much higher in the front, and so you feel like you are on a couch, sitting on a couch when you when you ride it. But
yeah.
by putting like a 3D printed really small spacer, like as small as I could make it, so the stem is almost slam, and then a negative cockpit, I managed to go not as low as the road, but quite low. And then I put like same
Okay.
saddle, same handlebar, so everything was the same. And but also I had to do 1 month of only racing, only training on gravel to really like get to my best numbers there. But I have to say, like, it makes a big difference if you can bring it closer to the to the road position, because even if, like, when I switched back to the road, I almost never had problems because it's the position I've used the whole life. But when you switch to the other one, and I also use a little bit the mountain bike, and it's, of course, it's even worse there because it's completely different. But yeah, I agree. Like, you feel like you have no power, and you get cramps in muscles that you you never even, you don't know that you use. So yeah, it's really important part. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah.
Oh, totally. And this was so stupid on my part because that's exactly what happened to me in this. Like I haven't had a cramp in a muscle in, I don't know, 2 years or something like that, and then everything was cramping in
Exactly.
this mountain bike race. I'm like, what the hell? And one of the stupid, like, why I felt so stupid about this is I think like a month before doing this race, or maybe a couple weeks before, I did that podcast with Ollie Eisenbach, and he was talking
Hmm.
about Q factor for how long, and that was the one thing I didn't think about. And I was like, oh, that's why. Because like the Q factor is like 2 centimeters bigger
Yeah.
on the mountain bike or whatever it is. This is way bigger on the mountain bike compared to the road bike. So then after that race, I was like, okay, I got to move my cleats on my mountain bike shoes so that the Q
Yeah,
factor is at
exactly.
least a little bit closer.
And
But
also
it's like
like
stupid things like that where I'm like, oh, how did I screw that up?
the stack height of the pedal is different. And at first I didn't, because
Yeah.
I on also on gravel, like, you can put, some guys put road pedals, some guys put mountain bike pedals, but it's almost always better to have the mountain bike because you never know what you have to do in a race. Or many times you have to adjust some clip to, maybe on a climb, you unclip because was one guy in the front, he flattens out or whatever, and then you have to clip back, and it's much easier if you have the mountain bike pedals. And there is like I think it's almost 5 millimeters differences in the height of the pedals. And I didn't think
Yeah.
about that when I set up the bike. And then after, at one point, I always like, I feel a little bit high on the saddle, but it's like the same. I don't understand why. And then after a while, I just realized, and I felt really stupid. But that's, one of the things that you don't think about, because you just take a gravel bike and think, I'm gonna go out and ride. But there are so many different things that you have to
Yeah.
figure out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Just going to go foot to the floor. See what happens.
yeah,
Okay. All right, man. Well, you're like, I know you read every freaking training study and whatever else. Like, what do you think about with training right now? Like, what are the things, like, what are you focusing on
Hmm.
in training right now? Or, like, what is top of mind or, like, you think is interesting and, like, the
yeah.
crazy ideas and stuff that you have around training? Not that you're, like, off on some different planet, but I know you think about
No, no,
training all the
no.
time. What are you thinking about now?
Yeah. So I think the main thing that I changed this year, it was, like, in the first part of the year, I focused a lot on threshold work, like with lactate and stuff, and I really tried to make it like that the Norwegian way. So I was really focusing on hitting the 3 millimoles, not higher than that. Trying to take as much lactate samples to figure out how it changes. So, for example, like, what happens after a rest day, what happens after 2 days, 3 days, what happens in the end of the ride, start of the ride, that kind of stuff. And I think I did, I don't know, thousands of lactate samples between November and January. And then the thing is, when I started the road season, and like the last 2 3 weeks before the road season, I got a bit, let's say, scared, because everybody told me, like, to race on the, because last 4 years I've only done Gran Fondo and hill climbs, that kind of stuff, and everybody told me to
These
race.
are the most important races in the world.
Exactly, but no, everybody told me, like, to race on the road, you really need to have to be explosive, to have the 2 minute power, that kind of stuff. And so in the last 3 to 4 weeks before my first road races, I went back to a lot of U2, a lot of sprints, and that kind of stuff. And the thing is, I went to races, and every time I felt like I was the strongest on the climbs in the first part, but then in the end, I was always like fading out a bit. And it was not that I was underperforming a lot, but in the winter I was doing some incredible threshold efforts, and in the races I could not even reply those squats for 10, 15 minutes. And so I thought a lot about
Okay.
that. And one part was the heat. training, but we're gonna talk about that later if you want to talk specifically about that. But another part was also
Of
that
course.
like I realized that, you know, like everybody focus on the 2 minute effort that wins the race, and they think like, you have to do those 2 minute power. But the thing is, like, I'm never limited by the 2 minute. It's not like people dropping because they do 650 watts and I can only do 600 watts. It's always like they do 500, but I'm so fucked that I can only do 450 and then I get dropped. And so I realized how important it is to have the high threshold and to be efficient so that you waste less energy. And because the thing is, like, everybody was telling me, yeah, but in the road races, UCI, you finish so fucked because you do a lot of time in zone 6 and zone 7, which you didn't do in Gran Fondo. So I went back and checked like the power file timing zone. And like when I won Grand Fondos in the breakaway alone, I had more time in zone 6 compared to those races that I did in with the bunch in UCI. So I realized, okay, it's not a problem of
Yeah.
how much power I spend in the higher zone. It's just that I focused so much on those efforts that I lost all my durability and all my efficiency. And so I realized to like I tried to go back more to long rides and threshold between the races. And I mean, I think it's working. I still have to do the main races of the year, so we'll see. But in my opinion, it's a bit underrated because everybody's like, now you race, you only have to sharpen the knife. But in my opinion, it's the opposite. Like the race is sharpening the knife a lot, and you have to kind of
Yeah.
keep it. I don't know the analogy, but you have to keep the threshold high. Otherwise, you just lose all the efficiency.
I I love it. Okay, so I've thought about this my whole friggin' life, and so there's well, I think most cyclists have, but there's like I'll give you the analogy that I used to use to think about
Hmm.
this, and then so there was like the old analogy that I had for it, which I think is what you're talking about now, and now I focus a lot more on like the fatigue resistance part of it. Like they're a little bit, it's kind of the same thing, but they're also a little bit different. Where like when you're talking about like sharpening the knife and stuff like that, I would always think about it like you're either building the engine or the turbo. And like
Hmm.
that 2 minute power, like those max efforts, that's like the turbo. And your
Yeah.
threshold and like this sub threshold work in zone 2, that's like building the engine. And if you just try to put a huge turbo on a small engine, you just blow up the engine. Like if you're
Exactly.
just like hitting the turbo all the
Yeah.
time versus somebody who does like a lot more when your threshold is really high. It's like if you and me are both, how do I explain this? My brain is shot.
Yeah, I know, but
If you and me are both riding, if you and me are it's like how much of your turbo are you using? Like
yeah, yeah,
if we're both riding at 400 watts and you're already using some of your turbo and I'm not, it's like you just
yeah,
have that much more that you can go on top of it. And then yeah,
yeah. It's
okay,
like
like
the
that's the
critical.
analogy that I always used.
That's the critical power W prime thing. You know that if you have a really high
Exactly.
critical power, you don't go into the anaerobic reserve, and if you have like lower critical power but high reserve, you have a bit more reserve, but like the reserve is still super small compared to what you can do below critical power. So it's almost always the win situation to have a high critical power, and that's kind of the same. Like the turbo is it's important because it wins races, but you have to be there in the final to be able to win. So I think that's and like for me the most interesting thing of this year is that I get to coach all the other guys from the SWAT Club road team, and like these guys are almost all been their whole life in U23 big teams, and like one of the guys, he won the European Junior Championship. He beat Arnaud Delis in the sprint, so he was like a really top talent as junior. And then he spent I think 3 or 4 years in Axion, and he was like
Yeah.
performing okay, but not he never won anything. And for me, it was a big challenge at first because I thought, these guys are trained in the, let's say, traditional way. And when I talk to them and I say, I want you to do, 7 hours every weekend for the whole winter, they say like, but why? I don't need to do Milan San Remo. And I'm like, yeah, but in my opinion, if you
Yeah, yeah.
like, to build the engine, you need to do that. And at first it was like a lot of finding the compromise, talking, because some of these guys, they're used to eat like only, super clean. They don't eat any, like, they really struggle to hit the calories because they're used to eat like, super clean and really paying attention to everything they put in their mouth. So when they went to do 7 hours, they were massively under fueling, and then they were fucked for a week. So I had to also figure out that. But now, most of them, they are doing better results than they were doing the previous years, because they're like Casper, the guy I told you about. He won a UCI race in Italy, and then he did a couple of podiums also last weekend in the GP New York City. And like the thing that I'm really happy about is that they're performing super constant week after week. Like they're always, if they don't win, they're top 5, top 10, really close. They do the really good breakaway, and then maybe they get caught. But it's not like they have one good day and then 2 shit months, which is what happens with most of the under 23 guys that I know, because they're trained like, they have a massive turbo, like you said, but they don't have like the big engine. So they really have, everything has to come together to be able to deliver that turbo in the finish. And then when they are able to do that, then yeah, they can do it. But if maybe it's too warm, whatever, they have to chase something that burns their matches early, then they're gone because they don't have the super big engine.
Okay. And then so tell me more about the training that you do now, or like this, I'm guessing the
Yeah.
training that you do more now, and that what you do with them then. So what does it actually look like?
So I like to train in blocks. So I never do like one type of session of everything every week. I do more like a VO2 block, maybe between like the ideal scenario is if there is no races for like 2 weeks, and then you can do 2 to 3 sessions of one thing per week. But
Yeah.
now that we have the races, like I tend to do maybe let's say like one VO2 block, and then 3 4 weeks of threshold or like lower intensity focused work. So it's like a lot more unbalanced towards the threshold work. And like my
So
personal,
wait. How long is a block?
so like for example, if YouTube blog, I do it like 1 week or 10 days. Either depends if there is a race in the middle. Like it can be 2 weeks with like uh, Tuesday and Wednesday sessions, and then the race on Sunday, or like Wednesday and Thursday, depends on the logistics. Or it can be like 10 days without races in the middle. So it's like 2 days, 2 days easy, 2 days, 2 days easy, and then 2 days, something like that. So it's like around
Okay.
5 sessions in 10 days, something like that, 4 to 5 sessions.
Okay.
But what I've seen is that that is kind of the cap that you reach with VO2 max. Like if you do more than 5 6 sessions of focused VO2 work, you're not gonna raise the ceiling anymore. And then after that, it's mostly
Okay.
like keeping the threshold, keeping the volume, and it also depends rider to rider. But like for me, um, the way I approach it is I always try to put like one really long day per week. And by really long, I mean I want to go close to 6,000 kilojoules, which is something that I never did. Like for example, in March and the first months that I raced, and I really missed it. And as soon as I went back into doing it, I saw like I flipped the switch. So in my opinion, that's for me that's the most important part. I put in a long day that can be, it's never like as pure on 2 days. Always like some intervals, and then I keep going on two until the end. So either do threshold, 2 long climbs at threshold, or VO2. It depends on which block I am, but it's always like the one long day, and then I kind of build the week around that long day. So if I have like the races on Sunday and then the next Sunday, that's basically like the long days. It takes all the energy of the week, and I put it on the Wednesday, and all the rest is like easy stuff, cruising around, maybe a bit of sprint. But it also depends, because I give a lot of sprints to the other guys because they're sprinters. But on me, I didn't see like such a big gain from that. So sometimes I just skip them. And then there is the heat training part because that's also like that's really cool as a concept, but it's really difficult to incorporate into a program when you have races, you have travels, you have everything. So that's also something that. And then once I put all these blocks together, then I decide what to do, like which kind of intervals I do. But for me, that's almost the less important part. Like I don't really care if you do, over under X minute of, if you do threshold, pure threshold, you do high threshold, low threshold. Like I think the important thing is you have to understand which days you want to work and what you want to work on. And then depending on, yeah, many things, like also how you feel that day, temperature, whatever, then I decide what to do. But it's still like I always plan far ahead for me, but I never plan the exact workout. The exact workout is almost always decided like either the day before or the day I go. So
Okay. Okay. So then you walk me through like the threshold block then. So if we're talking, this is going to be like 2 weeks or something like that. And how do you do it? So most guys like, or at least I do it a lot, is like 3 days on, 1 day off. What do you do?
no, I like what I've seen is that I cannot sustain 3 days of continuous like interval time because like the third day I'm always really fucked. If I can do 2 days, it's
Okay.
yeah, it's good enough. And
Okay.
normally I do like the first day, maybe I try to, because it also depends, in ideal situations, so no races, I always come into the first day feeling quite good. So I do the first day is like the main day with maybe I can do as much as 120 minutes of threshold, but it depends on I always do like low threshold. It's not like the hour PB. It's lower than that. It's like for me, my best hour has been 400 and 400, around 400, and then I do the threshold around 370. So it is quite comfortable.
Okay.
I could hold it for like 90 minutes straight if I wanted to, but I always divide in like 2 by 45 or 3 by 30, something like that on the main day. And then the
Okay.
second day, I always try to put as much work as I can, considering like, because for me the difficult part is to, you know, recover after the first day. In the winter is super easy because you you just have to eat the carbs and you're done. But in the summer, maybe if I finish super dehydrated on a threshold day, maybe I have to also put the heat training on top of that. So for me, it's really difficult to eat, the whatever 800 grams of carbs that you have to eat before. So sometimes the day after I start and I know that I'm already like in a small calorie deficit. So I say, okay, I'm trying to do the threshold in the first 2 hours. Maybe some days I can do 60 or plus minutes because, yeah, I don't know. It's really individual and depends on the day. But some days I do 30 minutes of 350 and I feel like I'm dying. And then I say, okay, for today, that's it. I will just do the hours. But and then the third day of the block, if there is a third day, is always like easy endurance. But most of the times I do 2 days block
Okay.
and then one easy day, or like two easier days. But depends on what I want to do on the easy days. Because sometimes, for example, in a heat training block, one of the two easy days will go to heat training, or maybe it will go to gym training, sprint training. So it's not like a proper rest day. And then I always try to keep one, let's say, easy but not really a rest day, and then one rest day. So sometimes I do two, 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 and then I do interval, easy, midday, easy, interval, easy, midday, like that. And but the thing is, during the season, many times you do like race, then you do one easy day, and then when you're supposed to start the block, you feel super shit because either you have traveled, most like now we're racing a lot abroad, and I've seen that the travel, especially on the plane, it really fucks you up. Uh, I think that's because you lose a lot of plasma when you're like at altitude in the plane, whatever. But the first day after in a block after race, I'm always shit. So I try to do like it's kind of an opener for the second day, and then the second day it becomes the main day. So
Okay.
yeah, that's
What is this thing you're telling me about? Like with When you have a flight that you think you lose like plasma volume
Yeah,
or something like this? What is this? I've never heard this.
yeah, that's also something that I'm still trying to figure out. But um, I wrote it on the note because it's fresh because we traveled back from New York this week, and that's something that I just made some research on. So basically, like I've heard on a, I don't remember where, on a podcast many, like 1 year ago or something, that they say like, when you fly on a plane, you have to be careful about hydrating because like even if the cabin is like the pressure is normal, you're still going at really high altitude, so the air is thinner, and so you give the stimulus to the body to lose plasma, lose all the fluids that you don't need during the flight, which is kind of the same that happens when you spend the first night at altitude. Like when you go to altitude, the first 2 days
Okay.
you go kind of down because the body gets rid of all the fluids that are not uh, you know, that are not needed. And so you dehydrate, you lose plasma, your performance goes down in the first 2 days. And like every time I
Interesting.
every time I do a flight, then I go back to training and I see that my threshold power and like in general my feeling around threshold zone three is really really bad. And I'm not talking about like bad in the legs. It's like the central system is like it cannot keep up. It's like I smoked 10 cigarettes right before. I really feel my lungs burning
Interesting.
and my heart rate is higher and stuff like that. And like to me, it cannot be just the stress of the travel because then when I do it on the car, it's never like that. It's always something that happens when I fly a plane. And so I did some research and I found a study that said that they made some they took blood samples on the people that had like a 10-hour flight whatever, and they lost 6 to 8% in plasma volume. And
Really?
that was done on like normal individuals. So my guess, I'm not sure about that, but my guess is, considering that I probably have 1.5, if not more than that, times the normal plasma volume of a person. I guess my body is like really, it gets rid of plasma really fast. But that's just a guess. I'm not 100% sure about that. And but I guess like if the study says that they lose 6 to 8%, like I can only guess I lose more than that if I do a long flight. So that's the only explanation I like I gave myself. And I don't know. I have to test in the future, but like something that let's say I will keep as a rule of thumb for the next years. Every time I have a flight, I need to do like a really long, easy day to give that plasma stimulus back, or hit training for a couple of days, and then I will feel normally like normal again. So that's what I've seen on myself. So if because the thing is like I do only one transcontinental travel a year, maybe two if we go to Canada. But for somebody who maybe lives in the USA and they have to race in Europe, it's a big thing. You have to consider that, take that into account, in my opinion.
That's so crazy. I've never heard of this. I've never even thought of this. But the first thing, like as soon as you started explaining this, the first thing, it's like, have you ever taken like the SpO2 monitor and checked it on the plane? Like I wonder if it
No,
does go
no,
down.
I haven't used that. But yeah, that could be interesting. That's true.
Interesting, because I've never had this problem, and like I'm not denying anything you just said. I'm just saying it's like I wouldn't think that like whatever it is, 8 hours in the plane is enough to do that, or I didn't even think that
Because
your
the thing
SpO2 would
is,
drop in the plane. But
no, the thing is, I don't think the oxygen would drop because the oxygen depends on like the reason why at altitude you lose, yeah, like you have less oxygen delivery is that the pressure is lower of the oxygen, but the pressure in the
right,
cabin it stays the same. The thing is, at altitude you also have the thinner air, which makes your body lose more fluid to keep the same humidity. Uh, so that's the part.
right.
Like the reason why you
Oh
lose the
yeah, okay,
plasma
I get it.
is not the same reason of why you have less oxygen.
Oxygen, low
So
oxygen.
on the plane you only
Right.
get one of the two. So it's you kind of get only the
Okay.
bad part because then you don't have the altitude
Okay.
stimulus, but you have the lower plasma. But the thing is, like that for sure, that's a thing. I don't know if 8 hours on the plane is enough to have such a loss, but I don't know, like to see the feeling of my threshold work and also the athletes I coach, it can be because it's like really bad on the second to third day, and like in my opinion, it cannot be due to jet lag because I've tried to race on 0 hour of sleep, and I know that it's not that. So I think the only possible explanation is that one, but that's something that I could be. Maybe I will hear somebody doing a study and the plasma stays the same. I don't know.
Interesting. Or this is going to be another one of these witch doctor voodoo science things about like like there's a million for the plane. It's like, oh, you need to wear a neck warmer on the plane because you're going to get sick if you don't. I'm like, come on,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah,
Are
exactly.
we really doing this? If not, okay, interesting. Okay, well then tell me about heat training. I
Yeah.
know you have a
So
lot of thoughts on heat training. Tell me everything about heat training.
yeah, I have to say, training this year. Like last year, I had some doubt about how to implement the training and like if it was worth the effort. And then this year we did this race in March. It was in Rhodes, so south of Greece, and like I trained
Uh-huh.
in winter in like 5 to 10 degrees the whole winter. And then we got there, and in theory, it was not supposed to be like really warm. Like it was supposed to be 15 degrees. But then suddenly, the third week, so the week of the state race, because we had 3 different weekends of racing, the third one was a stage race with like the more climby stages. It got up to like 25, almost like 27, 28 degrees. And I was sweating so much salt. It was like crazy. You could not, like, if in the end of the stage, my skin suit was full white. It was incredible. And then I realized,
White.
okay,
Yeah.
like after 3 hours and less than 3,000 kilojoules, I had really bad cramps, which I never have in my even when I do 6,000, I do a lot of intervals, whatever. I never have cramps now, but there I had cramps. I had like really bad, really. I felt like I was always out of breath, that kind of stuff. And then I kind of double checked after the race. I collect my thoughts, and I realized, okay, everything is due to the to the not being adapted to the heat, and also, for example, like the cramps part. Like people say you cramp because you lose the salt, but in my opinion it's related, but it's not consequential because you lose the salt when you're not heat adapted, and you get the cramps when your muscles are doing something that they're not used to. And like that when you're not adapted to the heat, you use much more glycogen, and all the stuff you talk about with the podlogger on a stud, you know, you know it better than me.
Yeah.
So like you lose your glycogen much faster than you would normally do, and then that's why you get cramps because
Yeah.
the muscles are just fucked. And so you see,
Ah, yeah, yeah.
you know, in my opinion, that can be also due to the let's say salt imbalance. But I have tried to go super high in salt, like really, really, like I haven't done a sodium test with the patch.
Test.
I haven't tried that, but I guess it's really difficult that you go higher than 1.5 grams of sodium per liter of sweat. It's like really, really few people. And I've tried to integrate as much as 1.5. And if I'm not adapted, I still get the cramps. So in my opinion, it's not a problem of sodium loss. It's only a problem that you're not
Okay, but this
adapted.
is interesting. Well, yeah, yeah, this is interesting because like normally when people talk about cramps, they say like everything that we've already talked about a lot, where it's like you're asking the muscles to do something that they haven't done before. So like a
Yeah,
really hard race, like if you do a race that's just harder than anything you've done in training, okay, you're gonna get cramps. And but the interesting point that you just said is like, well, it's probably also a lack of glycogen because you're just burning up so much more
yeah.
glycogen from the heat, and then like that's why it's like you should probably just be eating a lot more sugar, a lot more carbs in the hot races because you're burning it up a lot more than you would think because
Yeah,
of
the
the heat,
problem
and that's
is
what's causing the muscle cramps.
like the glycogen problem is that you know you cannot make up for the glycogen you lose in the muscles by eating more carbs because they go to two different, like the carbs you eat, they go to replace the like they go to to your blood sugar, and they kind of help to spare the liver glycogen. But the problem is the liver glycogen is like a small percentage of what you use in a race, because it's like 150 grams, something like that. So you can spare that, and it's really important because it helps the cognitive perception of fatigue and whatever. But the glycogen that you use in the muscles, it cannot be spared by eating more carbs. There are like plenty of studies, for example, by Podlogar, who said that there is zero glycogen sparing in the legs, and it's almost one-to-one related to how hard you go compared to your threshold. So if your threshold is 400 watts and you go 20 minutes at 300 watts, you probably don't lose a lot of glycogen. But if you do 5 times 1 minute at 650 watts, you will probably lose a high percentage of glycogen, even if on paper you have only done like 150 kilojoule of work, but the glycogen is getting so much lower by these super punchy efforts. And so that's what happens in the race. In my opinion, the glycogen goes lower much faster because of the nature of the efforts, which is a lot more like high intensity oriented. And the heat is also like a huge factor in how much glycogen you use, in my opinion, because like it makes you go much more glycolytic, and yeah, there is also plenty of study on that. And if you put the two things together, it makes sense that you get cramps when you when you exercise in the heat, because like you burn the glycogen much faster, and then the muscles get to a point where they cannot do the work that they're supposed to, and so you get the neuromuscular. Like in my opinion, the cramp is kind of, it's never something that is stopping you, because you can make it if like the thing is, if it's something that you can make it go away by eating some pickle juice, then it's not like a really serious thing. It's just a signal of the body that tells you, like, look, we are fucked. We cannot do that work anymore.
Yeah.
So you better stop. So you can go through a cramp for, like, if you have 5 more minutes to go to win a stage, you can eat your pickle juice and make the cramp go away and finish the race. But you cannot do your 5 minute PB, because the muscles are already fucked, and the cramp is only like a signal of the brain to the body to say, look, we are fucked, please be go easy on us. But it's never like a thing that if only the cramps can go away, then I will win the race. No, it's never like that. It's like, if the cramps go away, maybe you can survive 5 more minutes and not stop on the side of the road to do stretching. But once the cramps come, it means that the legs are already fucked. So that's at least my say on that.
Yeah. Did you listen to the podcast with Killian Jornet?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah, of course. And then he's like, it's like, yeah, like Jack, like if you're in the final of a race and you want to win the sprint, just imagine there's a rock gonna fall on your head in a second, and you'll get
Yeah.
this shot of adrenaline.
Yeah. No, but that's
I'm like, of course, KJ says this.
Yeah. That's also that's also something that, like, in my opinion, like this neuromuscular, let's say, like neural part of fatigue thing is really interesting. And the thing about lifting the car because your baby got stuck under, that kind of cognitive side of being able to do things you were not able to do, is really interesting to me. But in my opinion, it's just like a way of the body to mobilize your resources faster than you should. So it's interesting for, let's say, top sprinter, maybe sprinting in the end of a race, that kind of stuff. But my view on that is always like, you have a limited amount of resources, and your body is trying to use them the smartest way. So if you have to do a 5 hour race, your body will kind of prevent you to do 5 minute allowed in the first 5 minutes of the race, if you know that you have to keep going alone the rest of the, because your brain is protecting you from doing that. So that kind of think that you're chased by dogs or whatever, it helps if you really have to do the max effort to win the race in the end. But also, it's never smart to try to shut the brain down, or shut the, let's say, body control on that, because then the body is always kind of smarter than we are. So it's trying to protect himself
Yeah.
to go too deep. So, but yeah, I agree that in a extreme situation like the one he and probably you find yourself into, then it helps. and that's something interesting to look
Yeah,
into.
yeah. Here, man, I'll give you something that's like I think you'll love this because so I did. Do you know who Johnny Whale is? He
Uh,
worked with Dan Bigham on the Hour Record stuff,
ah,
and
yeah,
now
yeah,
he
yeah,
used
yeah.
to be one of the so
I
he
think
used to be at
I heard a
Ineos, now he's at
podcast with
Red
him.
Bull.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I did a 3.5 hour long podcast with him, and he was so loose where he just like gave me all the like he was giving me information on things I'd never even thought of before. Like I got a 45-minute long speech about how to like because my tires are shit basically, like about how I need to like improve my tires, and then all these crazy different ideas he had that I'd never even thought of. And then at the end of it, he's like, "Jack, you can't publish this podcast." I'm like, "God damn it! Like this is great," but just to give you like one of the crazy ideas he brought up in this that like I guess him and I'm sure it was him and Dan that were thinking this up. They spent so much time thinking this up where they were like, you know, your spleen holds about a liter of blood. And I'm totally speaking out of my butt on this
Yeah.
one. I have no idea what this is. They explained this to me and I'm like, huh? And like they're like, yeah. So your spleen holds about a liter of blood in it. But if you have a near death experience, you can empty it. So they were trying to figure out a way to make you have a near death experience before going and doing a race, like before doing the hour record or something like this, to
Okay.
drain the blood out of your spleen. I'm like,
Oh,
what?
that's crazy.
Like, just
Yeah.
the most ridiculous ideas that I'd heard about. Or like the other one was, do you know what a occlusion training is? Like
Yeah, yeah.
where you do like a sprint and then you put like the band around your leg. Yeah, I got a whole lecture on this too. Or not lecture, it was like just a fun conversation, but I'm just like, oh my God, I never even thought of this. Like this is so crazy. But Johnny was really disappointed in my tire selection apparently, so I'll never get another tire sponsor again if I ever publish that episode. But
Yeah. No, but all these things are super interesting for sure. But it's also, you would probably need a whole lifetime of studies, and people are actually doing that.
yeah.
Like people are dedicating their whole life
Oh, I yeah,
just
I
on studying that kind of things. And you know,
yeah.
I always try to avoid getting too, stuck into one particular thing, like, for example, the blood flow restriction thing. I would have to take it, test it for like 1 year, and then maybe I can figure out something. So I just say, okay, I just wait for these smart people to do their studies, and then when something will come out a little bit more, to give me a direction, maybe I will test it. But for now, I mean, I don't have enough time to spend on that because there is. I think that's, as you say, that's the top of the pyramid, and you still have to focus on the base. It's the most important part, and that's what also Kilian kind of said. He said, in the end,
Yeah.
he puts down 1,500 hours for 20 years, and that's what makes
On
him
his
great.
feet. On his
Yeah,
feet.
exactly. And then people are like asking him, how do you use sodium bicarbonate in a ultra race? But like, you're not getting as good as Kilian by eating sodium bicarbonate. Look, he has the 1,500 hours a year for 20 years. That's what makes him good. And
Yeah, he
yeah,
did
that's
UTMB with COVID.
yeah, exactly. No,
Oh
but
yeah, that's
also
why I
I
love
want
Johnny. It's
to.
like he spends all the time.
I give you, talking about
Go
heat
ahead.
training
For
and
sure, sir.
Kilian, I give you another anecdote. So like, because after this race, when I really struggled in the heat, I got home and started to do some heat training. And then I saw that at first I was not sweating a lot because, like always, at first when you're not adapted, you sweat really solely, but you don't sweat a lot of volume. And then the more adapted you get, the more the more water you sweat, and the less sodium or whatever you have into the sweat. And so, like, I thought, because I'm not one of the guys who on the bike they drink 1 liter an hour. I'm always trying to, just don't get thirsty on the bike. So I drink to, let's say, to necessity. So if I know that, like in the winter, I know that I will get 1% dehydrated on a ride, I can not drink anything or whatever. And I think that's kind of the same that Kilian is doing. He has the same philosophy of like, drink as less as possible, not to die, basically on a
Yeah,
mountain day.
licking rocks.
Exactly. But then I thought, like, maybe it's possible that my body got used to sweat less because I gave him like only the fluid that he needed. So it's possible that if I gave him the fluid in excess, then he would sweat more and so protect me better from the heat. And so because I have a friend in common, like I have a really good friend, which is Francesco Puppi, the trail runner, who is like together with Kilian in the Trail Runner Association or whatever. He's a really good friend with Kilian. Then I said to him, like, can you ask Kilian, please, if you think it's possible that he got like, let's say, worse heat adopted by, because also Kilian said in many podcasts that the first experiences that he had in hot races, he always blew up and never finish the races. And so I asked him, like, can you ask Kilian if he thinks that's possible, that it's a thing? And then Kilian said kind of yes, but he was, a bit in the reply, he was a bit, I don't know if he didn't get the point that I was trying to make or whatever. But then I heard in your podcast with him, he said, like, yeah, I always drink very few water. So that's why I was not sweating enough. And then when I did the heat training, I see that I sweat much more. And so there I got my answer, and it's actually a thing. So I think that's
Yeah.
possibly one of the reasons why I struggle much more than I should in the heat. Because every time I think like, okay, I'm not from Norway or whatever. I always train in 10 degrees or more, even in the winter. So why I struggle more than more than the Norwegians in the heat? It doesn't make sense. But I think that's one of the possible reasons for that. And now that I'm starting to do heat training more regularly, and so I drink, the 5 liters of fluid or whatever a day, then I see it's coming much faster than before.
Yeah, but okay, hold on. I just like put a pin in this for anyone listening. I know you know this story, but like I tried this because I learned this like Matteo Jorgensen gave me this
Oh
idea
yeah,
in
the fluid
2018 or
thing.
whatever. Oh, but yeah, you know this stupid story where like we were doing like heat training in the sauna in Colorado or Utah or whatever where we were. And he wasn't drinking anything in the sauna because apparently when you do heat training without drinking so much, you increase the EPO effect there,
Mhm.
which is like similar to what you're talking about here. And then I figured I'd try it years later, and I pushed it way too far, and that's the most sick I've ever been in my life, where I
Yeah.
like scarred my kidneys to the point where when I went to the bathroom hours later, I was peeing mud, and like was in bed for 10 days. Like horrible. Do not do this. That like you could. Don't take the approach of doing heat training and not drinking anything because you will destroy your body, and that is like lethal, like death. Don't do that. I've learned that one the hard way.
Yeah, and also on that part of the fluid thing, after I listened to your podcast with Ben Ronestad, I went back to listen one that he did,
Yeah,
I think in 2023 with it was with Scientific Triathlon, where he also talked about heat training.
yeah,
And in that one, he described the protocol a little bit more in details, and he said that they were only allowed to drink 500 milliliters during the study because you want to induce a small dehydration when you do the heat training. And I think I don't know. It's also like a controversial point because you never want to give the recommendation of people like of getting dehydrated to people. So it's not something that you would recommend to people. But for me, I have kind of a, let's say, safe zone of losing fluids that I know in the summer I always come back from long rides, and I know that if I am, let's say, below 3 kilos of dehydration total, then I know I'm safe. I'm not like dying or anything. I just drink back the fluids and I'm okay. And so with the heat training, I weigh myself because many times I do it after the ride. So I weigh myself before the heat to see how much fluid I lost during the ride and how much I can allow myself to lose during the heat. And then based on that, I decide like, okay, I will drink 1 liter during this heat session, or I will drink zero if I see that I'm still in the safe zone. And so I always aim to, stay between that maximum, yeah, 3 kilos, which is what, like 4%, uh, probably 4% dehydration on my total body weight. And so I know that I'm like as dehydrated as I can be without having problems. And that's that's not like a thing that I would advise on people, but for me it works to get that bit dehydrated because then I see the response in blood plasma is also much better.
I like it. It all makes sense to me. I'm just paranoid after doing this for a
Yeah,
long time.
yeah.
I'm just like, nope. I'm gonna just stick with getting warm, and I'm gonna drink lots. I'll drink warm tea. I'll drink a
But
lot. I'll drink a
also
liter of warm tea.
Also, Kilian said something about that thing being like the renal function, something that you have to train. And I haven't really looked into it, and I'm not an expert of anything related, but it makes sense that it's something that you kind of get adapted to during the years. Also, like on an evolutionary perspective, probably for sure you can get adapted to being a lot dehydrated, because otherwise, in the past, human would have died much earlier if you could not get any dehydrated. But it's something that you have to really adapt to in years. So it's something that maybe works for me, because I'm also, I've always been on the let's say low fluid side of the spectrum. But if somebody tries it and his renal function is not trained, it's possible he has problems. So it's kind of the same that Kilian advised, and I would say, yeah, you really have to be careful with that stuff, because yeah, you don't want to mess up with those systems.
For sure. Okay, so then tell me more about like what you do for heat training. Like what's the protocol for it? Is it like right after the ride? Is
Yeah,
it before the ride? Is it after the ride? How many times a week? Like all this kind of stuff.
yeah. So on that part, I think I would really like to see new studies, because all the studies that are out, they're on a 5 weeks, 5 sessions protocol, and it's just,
Yeah,
for me, it's
torture.
not doable during the season.
Yeah.
It's not doable, because you have races, you have if you want to put in like one decent session a week, you cannot do 5 times hit training. It's just impossible. So for me, that protocol is, of course, it works, but what I would be really interested to see is what is the minimum effective dose, because my guess is like with 2 sessions a week, you probably can get, I don't know, 70% of the way, whatever, 60, 70%. So what I'm trying to do now is I try to do it on every, let's say, hard day. So not on rest days, of course, not on race days. Not on when I'm away for races, I cannot do it. But every other day when I do intervals, then I go back home, and either straight after the ride, or I prefer to do it on a second moment of the day. But I don't. It depends if I have the time, or yeah, how late I come back from the ride. But I always try to do that 1 extra hour, 50 minutes of heat training, and I do it with like I've always tried to do it with the normal winter clothes, and I always felt like I was never even close to getting the heat stimulus right. And then I bought this motorbike suit. Like it's like I went on Amazon, and I wrote like painter suit, and then I tried to look at all the suit that I could buy, whatever. And then I found this. It was called like motorbike rainproof, windproof, whatever, and anything
Yeah,
proof
yeah, what all the
jacket.
motorcycles are wearing in the Giro right
Exactly,
now. Yeah.
exactly. I bought it, and the first day I tried it, I was almost almost collapsing in the end, because it's really, it keeps all the heat inside. You cannot absolutely make any drop of sweat evaporate, because it's really, really thick and waterproof. And it's good because I don't have to put any extra clothes on. I just put that suit on. I do 50 minutes, and in the end, I'm dying. The thing is, now I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out how easy I can do it and still get the heat stimulus. Because after I listened to your podcast with Ben Ronestad, I'm starting to get, not paranoid, because I'm not afraid of overdoing it, but it's really hard mentally to do it. So I want to see how easy I can do it
Yeah.
and still get the benefit. So I will have to, like,
Yeah.
let's say that my next it's not crazy, but for Ben it's not crazy. But my next experiment will be to buy the rectal thermometer and try it, because
Oh God. And
I
when
I
he
know it.
asked me that question, like no no hesitation. It was like,
Yeah,
hey
yeah,
Jack, have you stuck a thermometer up your ass and checked this way? I
yeah.
was
No, but I love that
nope,
when you say
I
that.
haven't done that yet. Like just like wasn't sarcastic, didn't
No,
flinch,
no, no. He
nothing.
was
Just
like,
like straight to the point.
yeah, yeah. And also on another podcast, the other podcast I listened, he was like, by far the easiest way of doing HIIT training is by using a rectal thermometer. And he said it as if
Yeah,
he
the
was talking
easiest
about,
too, for sure.
just, looking something on your watch. So then after I listened
Yeah.
to that, I say I have to buy it, and now I order it. So it's coming, and I will try.
Oh
But
God, you're more committed than me. I'll
we
look at
you
my
know,
heart rate. That's enough for me.
you know, I think
Okay.
because the thing is, I used in the past I used the core sensor, but it was
Yeah.
giving me some strange reading, and I don't know if it was like a problem with the sensor or but it was also like when they just came out with the company. So I also heard from some friends who have talked with people at Core that the first battery of sensors, many sensors had problems, and they were like getting miscalibrated with whatever room temperature. I don't even remember. But the first I used, it had problems, so I never bought another one again. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe now they are more accurate because I know that many people are using it, but I don't know. I think it's really difficult for me that it can give you a precise reading of what is happening inside the body, considering that outside of the body it can change so much. If you are outside riding on a 50k an hour, or if you're inside with a painter suit on, I don't know. I guess it's really difficult for a sensor to measure the thermal exchange when the outside can change so much. But I don't know. It's possible that it's super accurate, and I just don't know. So
Interesting. So do you use it? Do you go mostly by heart rate then when you do your heat training now?
yeah, now I go by heart rate, and the protocol I found for me, and I give to the athletes I coach, is always to go like mid zone two until your heart rate reach the, let's say, high point of zone two. So what you would normally reach doing LT1 on the outside. So if I do a climb on the around 300 watts, at one point I will reach, let's say, 80% of my max heart rate, and that's kind of where my, also measuring the lactate. I know that that's kind of the point where the metabolism will shift to, start producing lactate. So I know that it's not because of the lactate, but I know that something on the metabolism changes there because the body is starting to work too hard to. So my goal is to reach that heart rate and then lower the power and keep it. Uh, and it's but the heart rate, it changes so much based on what you've done before. When I do it straight after a long ride, it goes up really really quick, and I have to do 200 watts to keep it there. Sometimes I really have to push, so it depends. I think the if you have the option of measuring the temperature, it's much better. But yeah, I think the thing is, I don't do it 5 times a week because I cannot do it 5 times a week right now. So I'm also less afraid of overdoing it because I know that it's only 2 times, maybe three. So even if I do it a little bit too hard, it's not like, I'm not going to destroy the rest of my training.
Okay. So you do it at 80% of your max heart rate. So what's that, like
I
161?
don't like, yeah, I don't really do it the whole time. I just, I reach it maybe after 30 minutes, and then like stay there
Yeah.
for the last 20 minutes. But I never try to, do 300 watts to reach it, because otherwise I know that in the end I will be super fucked the last 10 minutes. I always try to get there slow. And I say, for example, yesterday I did it around 240 watts for 30 minutes until I reached that heart rate. And then I went down to 200 and I
Hmm.
stayed there and yeah, the heart rate is around 160, something like that.
Okay. Cool. I like that. All right. So moving on from heat training, one of the other like the points that you sent me here, and I love like I'm curious where you're going with this because
Yeah.
I think we have the same idea on this. Where it's just like long days being able to train more as a
Yeah.
talent. Because it's like in my opinion, like I want to know where you're going with this, but like in my opinion, like when people talk about talent and like athletes and stuff like that, like people like VO2 max and like leg length and all this other stuff, I'm like, I think the number one thing when it comes to talent in cyclists is they just don't break. Like they
Yeah,
can do
yeah.
a 30-hour week and they respond well to it versus other people do a 30-hour week or whatever it is and they fall apart. And I think like just that durability that they can just train a lot and not fall apart is the most important thing when it comes to talent. And also probably with like keeping a pro contract, if you're just reliable, you're not always sick or overtrained or
Yeah.
have a knee
Yeah.
problem and all this other, like if you're just durable and reliable is like the number one talent. But that's my opinion, but I'm curious where you were going with this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I wrote it exactly because I heard that when you were doing the podcast with Killian, and that's also something that I thought a lot about in during this season. So I wanted to also talk about that. I don't know if it's the number one talent, but for sure it is one of the many talent of the skill set of a pro cyclist that you can have. Some riders they have it, some riders they don't. But um, and in my opinion, this is something that it gets misunderstood a lot. Like people normally, if you look at like some coaches, I know for sure because I have many guys who are like juniors, and so I know how the selection process works. And you see so many coaches who and scout from the for the Evo teams, which they want to they always look for the guy who has less hours, and they say if this guy is so good with so little hours, then for sure he will be much better. But I don't know because that's also
Yeah.
something that like for example as Kilian said, you have to put in the hours between those age whatever 10, 15 to 20, and if you don't put the hours there, it's really difficult to wake up one day at 25 and say now I'm going to do 30 hours a week. Not many people can do
Yeah.
it. And something that I like this year at first, like I said, I was a little bit afraid of overdoing it, so I instead of train like the other years I didn't care. I just like train as I think I should be training because I thought like, okay, if I fail or whatever, it doesn't matter because I want to do Grand Fondo, so I don't care if I lose 10 watts here or whatever. And it always worked really well on me. I was like progressing slower but constantly. This year I kind of went back a bit to what is done in, let's say, traditional training for a elite pro, whatever, like high level cyclists on the road, which is staying around 20 hours, doing the 2 sessions a week of U2, whatever, but keeping it safe. They never do the crazy days. And for me, it was just making me worse because I kind of got used to do the crazy training in the years. And so now something that I can do that maybe others can't is to train like a lot of volume, a lot of intensity, or like a lot of threshold, do the really big days and recover from it. So to be able to adapt. And in my opinion, it's something that you train for it your whole life by putting in the work. And every time you do like a new step, then you can work a little bit harder. But it's something that it's stupid for me to take a guy who is used to do 30 hours a week and say, if you do 20, you will be flying because you will be so fresh. Like it's an endurance sport in the end. Even if to do 5 to 10 minutes full gas, you still need the aerobic engine to be super high. So in my opinion, if you go down from 30 to 20, maybe in a 6 month time you can still be good because maybe you do a lot of intensity or whatever, and you have 10 years of work in your past. But on the long term, in my opinion, if you go down with the hours or you go down with the overall work, it's almost always a bad thing. Like in the end, you will always get worse. So I think for me, like it's not a talent. It's something that you develop over the years. But I just see that it's really important to be able to tolerate the high lows if you want to be good. And people who try to, let's say, compromise and say, if I train like this, it's good enough. So I will not go over it and do more work. I don't know. It's not an approach that I like because, in my opinion, like you're missing on potential gains, and then maybe the same people they are like watching like every ounce of food they put in their mouth because they say like I want to be really professional, and then maybe they could just ride 5 hours more per week and be much better, and they just don't want to because the traditional work is to do 20 hours. So in my opinion, that's quite stupid.
Interesting. Okay. Because I'm the opposite of it. Well, so not the opposite. It's like I've gone. I used to always do like so many hours, like just more, eat more, train more, and just go. And I still do eat more, train more, but I train less hours now, and I go better. But I would just say it's like I'm just more efficient with the time. Like for example, I put this thing up on Instagram, and everyone took it the wrong way. Where I said I think in one part I said I don't if I'm putting my cycling shoes on, it's at least 4 hours or something like that. And everybody took it the wrong way as far as like, oh, he must
Yeah.
train like 40 hours or 30 hours a week or whatever. And I was just like, no, I train less. It just means like I'm super fresh every time I put my cycling shoes on. Like if I'm not
Yeah.
fresh enough to do that, then I go do that. And for me, it's just been like, okay, the volume's, I couldn't even tell you how many hours I do right now. It's probably around like 20 hours, maybe like 18, 20, 21 hours, something like that now. But it's like everything is structured versus in the past, it was just like pile on more and more and more. And there'd just be a lot of hours spent just sort of noodling around, like just getting endurance stuff in. Versus now, if I look at like my longest ride would be like, yeah, maybe 6 hours, something like that. And it's like properly pushing the whole time. Like just the quality and the intensity has gone up,
Yeah.
but I've just basically cut out all the nonsense riding of, or like I would call it, not nonsense, like just riding to get the hours in. So it's interesting.
I
I
don't,
like that idea.
I don't know if I had
Huh.
to guess about your training, like based on what I read in your
Uh huh.
book and heard in your podcast. Like the problem, like I don't think that you were. If I look at your numbers now and the numbers you said before in the like previous years when you won the stages in Canada or whatever, like you already had crazy good numbers. And if I can say compared to the KM you did last year, probably as good. The thing is now you're probably
Yeah.
lighter, I guess, like 3-4 kilos lighter.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
thing is now you got much more consistent because you figured out how to not kill yourself with nutrition, not kill yourself with yeah, like you said before, the crazy heat training, whatever. And the consistency is as important as the total, like, it's important to do the 30 hours week, but you don't want to do a 30-hour week and then be a zombie and do 30 hour of 150 watts. You want to do 30 hours and be like good every day, be able to do your intervals at least 2 or 3 times a week. So I'm not like, in my opinion, there is no sense riding. In my opinion, all the riding you do is kind of contributing to the aerobic development. And I think in the years before, like you cannot argue, you cannot say that you didn't have the crazy good aerobic engine, because also when you won Old Starter the first times, like you have to do some crazy numbers in the end of a 7,000 kilojoule ride to do that. So you cannot say you didn't
Yeah.
have the numbers. Probably now you're like, of
No,
course,
totally.
being 3 kilos lighter is big thing, and
A lot.
because you are like already on the edge. It's not like you're going from amateur to it's not like we're talking about noob games. It's really on the edge of the improvements that you can make. So that's probably a good thing. The consistency is another one. And then I would say the third one, which is something that I want to highlight because it's something that I wish all my athletes could learn, is that when you have something outside of cycling, it takes away so much stress
Yeah.
mentally that yeah,
Yeah.
everything feels better. When you have a bad day, it's just a bad day. You're not like questioning your life choices about that. And so if I had
Uh huh.
to, I mean, it's just a guess. Of course, you know yourself better than I do. But if I had to guess why you're better now, I would say it's not because of the more structured training, but because of these three things first. And then maybe on the structured
Yeah.
training, but it's, that's it, my opinion. Of course, I don't want to be, to say that I know everything, but
No, you're spot
my
on.
opinion is that,
No, you're exactly right. And so, like, just to make it easier to understand, it's like if my coach gave me 5 hours before and I had nothing else to do, I'd be like, well, I'm just going to go do 7. That way I just come home in a body bag every time because I
Mhm.
have nothing else to do. And then I'll just like eat dinner and go to bed or something like that. Versus now, it's like if I have 5 hours to do, I'm going to do exactly 5 hours because I want to get back to work. I want to go, like, for other people,
Mhm.
it'd be like playing video games or something like that. Like, they want to
Yeah.
go do that. And then, yeah, exactly. Like the consistency part. When training doesn't go well, like I forget about it as soon as I take my cycling shoes off and shower. It's like, okay, that's done for the day. Try again tomorrow. It's like that's a big one. But the hard part about being a cyclist is the fact that you learn at a very young age. The more stuff you cut out of your life, the better athlete you will be. And then eventually you cut out
Yeah.
everything, so there's
Yeah,
nothing else.
exactly.
And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you got to find something you like.
Yeah, then you have to
Yeah.
kind of
Okay.
go back to adding things, and then you have to find the balance, because I had so many, like the sentence that I think I heard the most between under 23 guys is people saying, I'm so frustrated because I do everything that I should do and I'm not winning races. And I think like everybody at this level is doing everything that they can do, and only one people out of 180 can win races. So the point is not, you do everything that you have to do, then you win races, and then you become pro, and the other guys are just stupid and they just do it for fun. You have to do everything that you need to do, and then hopefully in 2 3 years you can be good enough. And if you're not, then you try it. It's like any other challenge in life. Not everybody can succeed, so it's better if you try to develop something on the outside so that you can still put 100% in cycling without feeling, let's say, you're you know putting your life at a stop just for that. It's you can always do something on the side. It has to be, of course, you cannot go and be construction worker 10 hours a day and still
Oh,
expect to
Paul.
train,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and it, but you can always study, do a part-time job, whatever it is, and then of course, you have to do everything you can do in training, in nutrition, whatever, for 2 3 years, maybe 4 5, whatever it is. But you cannot expect, I did it for 6 months and I didn't win races, so it's not worth it. Then why are you a cyclist? It's like the most difficult sport in the world, and just go and play video games, like you said.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, here, moving away from like the training, the technical stuff, which I know you love to talk about, moving away from that because your fans are
Yeah.
going to shoot me if I don't ask some of these questions. It's like, what's your approach as far as like, is the dream still to make it to the world tour or whatever? Like, what's your approach on like,
hmm
what are your goals right now? Like, are you trying to still make it to the world tour, or like, how hard are you pushing for this? Like, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, I think like I would not say my dream is to make it to the world tour. Like something that I've developed in these 2 years of being in the Zwift Academy thing. I felt this pressure every time, even when I was competing for the title like in the final. I always felt like if I can make it and being in Alpecin, but then I'm not a good enough cyclist because I haven't been in a group for 4 years. I haven't done a UCI race in 4 years, so I don't know how good I can be in a group, whatever. I felt this pressure of like, I don't know if I belong to that world. So what I want to do now is, I want to race UCI races, whatever, race with the pros when I can, and see if I belong there, like, let's see, with the traditional way. And like I would my dream is still to like I would not call it a dream. It's like my goal is still to make it as a pro, but I want to make it like to deserve to be a pro. You know what I mean? It's not if
Of
they hand
course.
me a contract tomorrow because they say like you have a good following on Instagram, so it's a good move for us to take you on.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, as it's not something that
No one
it's
wants
not
that.
just because I have the contract then I say I'm a pro. It's something I want to like. For me, it's a much better
Earn it.
satisfaction to, yeah, exactly. When I did like the top tens in Norway with Uno X, it was like the biggest satisfaction I've had in a really really long time, and it was probably I was more satisfied by that than I would have been if I won Zwift Academy, because then it would be, yeah, okay, it's a contract, but I still have a job as a coach, whatever. So it's not like I have to. It would change my life. It's something that I want to earn, and then if I can be good enough to be in a pro team, then good. But what I want to see is, take as much knowledge as I can through racing and being in this environment, and also, like as I said, I learned so many things already in 3 months of racing on the road as in UCI races. I learned so many things on also tactical stuff, that kind of things, that it made me realize like, you know, I didn't know a lot before going into this world. So I feel like I still have so much improvement to make. And I don't have a particular goal. I'm just, excited to try to make steps and see where it's going.
Okay. But I think like the big thing for a lot of guys, and so again, you have other stuff outside of cycling, which is wonderful. But for a lot of guys, when they're 24, 25, 26 years old, it's like the only thing in the world that matters to them is getting that World Tour contract. And they're just like beating their head against the wall because they're just like, how do I get this? For guys that aren't even born in Europe or something like that, it's like, how do I even
Yeah.
get to Europe to get the chances to show yourself or something like that? And they're so desperate to do it. Like, what do you, I'm trying to think, like, what is your goal for like, do you want to keep racing the UCI races, or is it just like I'm just going to keep doing the races that are fun to me? I just want to be the
Yeah.
best that I can be at these races, and if the pro contract comes along the way, awesome, but I'm not going to keep running my head into the wall trying to do some crazy race that I don't even enjoy just to try to prove it
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the teams.
Yeah, no, I think definitely I want to keep doing it in a way that I can enjoy. So like I'm doing now, we are like with Squad Club, it's it's like I have the opportunity to race the in at the level that I want to be racing to improve, but to do it in my like home team, let's say, because that's where I grew up as a thug, as everything. So this is the environment is super important to me. I don't want to go on a random Conti team and try to make it as a pro because that's you know I think the kind
Miserable.
of yeah I think the kind of world tour thing dream is something that it really helped me to have Asbjorn Hellemode close to me because he did like the thing that nobody wants to. Like he went into the World Tour and then he came out. He was like straight out, no contract at all. It was not even our Conti team. And I think for him it was really, really hard. But I think it teach him a lot and it teach me also a lot being his coach and his friend because you kind of realize that you're just a small part of a machine and
Hmm.
when you expect like I turn World Tour and then I'm part of the machine, I will be for my whole life. But it's not like that, you're always
Yeah.
replaceable and now the way he got back into being in World Tour and now he's actually performing much better than he was when he was in track. So he will hopefully stay in the World Tour. The way he got back was by realizing that he enjoyed being on the bike, he enjoyed training, but there are also a lot of stuff that he was not he didn't want to stay on a shit team in training camp in 6 months a year in a shit house with people that he didn't even want to talk to. Until he said, okay, if I can't be World Tour with this process, like by whatever, doing gravel races, having fun, then good. If I can't, then it's not the end of the world because there is so many other things. And I think that that's the right approach to have because yeah it's kind of a dream but in the end it's just a piece of paper with a with a sign and you can be in world tour for 2 years then go out and then nobody will ever know you've been in world tour and it's not like your life has changed. I know so many people who have been pros have done Giro d'Italia and now they're doing like construction workers or stuff like that. So you know it's it's kind of the goal but it's not a dream like that I'm supposed to like if I had the opportunity to be there without all the steps in between I don't think I would take it because that's not something I'm interested in. I think I want to take all the steps and see if I'm good enough by with the normal path and if not I think there are a lot of opportunities now with all the like the gravel scene, for example, or yeah, for sure the off-road is one. The I don't know, mountain bike marathon is also like a word that is kind of fading out, so it will probably like succeed a bit to the gravel scene. At least that's what I heard. So I'm interested to keep, racing at high level, but if I cannot have the, let's say, proper pro contract with a salary, it's not the end of the world because I have another salary. So what I'm interested is in racing high level, seeing how good I can be, and then yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And I think that because I was trying to come up with an answer for this for so many years when I was trying so hard to make it to the World Tour, and then there's so many guys that ask me like that have missed that under 23 cutoff, and they're trying to figure out how like what's the path to the World Tour once you miss the under 23 cutoff. and I never had an answer. And I would ask I'd ask like every coach and manager and direct everyone that's ever come on the podcast this question, like, okay, how do you make it if you miss that cutoff? And I think the answer that I've finally arrived at for that is that there isn't one. Like if you miss that under 23 cutoff, there really isn't a pathway there. And so the advice I think I would give to those guys is that just focus on the like don't try to force like a square peg into a round hole by going and joining some Conti team where you're going to be miserable and you're just dealing with chaos all the time, and it's like you don't even have like working bikes, and like maybe you go to the races and maybe you have someone to pass bottles to you, like you're just trying to force yourself through the system that existed 10 years ago to make it. I think the better advice is the fact that like just pick the type of racing that you enjoy the most and that you're going to be able to show your best at. And then if
Yeah,
like just focus on doing your best at whatever style of racing suits you the best. And if the World Tour contract comes along the way, great. But you're going to have a better shot at getting that contract by just being able to show your best at something rather than trying to force a square peg into a round hole by doing
exactly.
crazy race, like just trying to force it the old school way. Or like at least that's the path that I've come up with here, because it's like I've had like there's been a handful of teams that have asked, like some of the World Tour teams have asked me to like basically go back to the life I lived 5 years ago, like go or 3 years ago,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever, like go back to riding for these Conti teams. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, there's no fucking way. Like, are you joking? Like, I know what that's life is like. That's a fairy tale there. Like, that's not real. There's no path there.
exactly.
And I'm going to be miserable and I'm going to be walking away from everything I worked so hard to build to do this. Like, I'm going to do the racing that is fun to me, what I enjoy racing. And if anything I do along the way impresses somebody enough to give me a shot, awesome. I would go for it. I'd drop everything else to go for that. But just trying to like, yeah, force yourself to do it the old school way, the old path. It's like I don't think that exists anymore. I think you just have to
No, no,
focus
exactly.
on whatever racing suits you, whatever you can enjoy, and wherever you can show your best. Like if you can show your best racing mountain bike marathon or gravel racing or Grand Fondo racing or whatever, Zwift Academy, any of this stuff, like that's a better option than just forcing yourself to go do it on some of the some of the crazy Conti teams for that, because I don't think that's a
Yeah.
path anymore.
No, no, I totally agree. That's exactly what I was trying to say. And also, like when you're doing something that you don't like, if you don't like it 80% of the time, then you should start to be asking yourself questions like you cannot only like it the one day a year, or you can pull out a win, or 2 days a year where you have results, and then all the rest of the time you're miserable because the team management is shit with you, behave like shit, they don't pay you, whatever, any problems that you can have. Like in the end, if it's a dream, it cannot be shit 80% of the time. It can be shit 20, 30%
Yeah.
of the time. Like anything, it's not always good, but it cannot be bad most of the time. It has to be fun at
Mm.
least half the time. Otherwise, like also now, sometimes I have, you're still doing a sport which is super dangerous. Every time you hear news about people getting killed by cars, or people crashing out in races with a really bad fracture, you think like, fuck, I don't know if it's what I want to do for my life. But if 85% of the time is what I if 85% of the time is what I think about, I dream about, then it's still a dream. But of course, it's everything in life that is good has a negative side, and it makes sense that you kind of take some risks, endure some challenges, whatever, if it's what you really like. But if the risk and challenges become 90% of the time, and 10% is the satisfaction, then what is the point? It's that means that it's not what you really want to do. It's just that you don't have the let's say the courage to give up your sometimes it's not even your dream, maybe it's your family's dream. I know some guys who they want to stop, and their parents they want them to keep going because they have been cyclists their whole life or whatever. I think it takes a lot of yeah, I would say courage, maybe it's not the right word, but sometimes you need to face the reality and say, okay, do I like this, or do I just do it because it's routine, or it's what I've done my whole life? And then if you like it, then of course you should keep going. Like something that I really respect is when I see like one name that I want to to say, because I think it's a guy that I really really respect, is do you know Magnus Bach-Clary? He's like a Danish guy
Yeah,
who
yeah, of course.
he won basically
Yeah, yeah,
all
for
the
sure I know
gravel
him.
races in the first part of the year, and he's super good also on the road. Like if you go and see the the pro cycling stats finishes on the some UCI races in Norway or Denmark, he's like in top 10 since 2015. Every year he's always there, always there, always there, and he's super strong. And he is doing like part-time work as a researcher in Copenhagen University in sport science. And he has some,
Hmm.
like sometimes I go on PubMed to look for whatever, and I look like first name on the studies, Magnus Backlaris, and maybe I just raced with him 2 days before, and like, that's what I really respect. You have like a passion, and he lives he lives it like the way that he found it. It's more enjoyable. He races at a really high level. I don't know if he's paid by his team. I don't really care about that, but he found a way to live it in the best possible way, and do like both the university work, the racing is really good. He didn't say like, okay, if I want to work, I will just do Grand Fondos and race for fun. He's like racing as hard as he can, as smart as he can, whatever. And I really respect that. Also happens a lot in Norway, Denmark in general. You see many 27, 28-year-old elite guys who are super, they have all the marginal gains possible. They're super focused, super trained, super hard, and maybe they also have a side job. And that's something that in Italy, but also, yeah, many other countries, it's just not a thing. Like people think, if I make it by 23, good. Otherwise, I will just do something completely different. But sometimes you
Yeah.
just have to, if it's your passion or your dream, it's okay to kind of reshape it a bit, because everybody dreams about winning a tour, but only one guy, maybe 10 guys in a decade can do it, maybe even less. So not everybody can be that good. So you have to kind of reshape it and try to leave it the way that it works for you.
Yeah, totally. Well, there's an example of a guy where you're like, how isn't he a world tour rider? Like how isn't he made the
Yeah.
step up yet? You're like, what the
Yeah, and
hell?
maybe
Like he's
maybe
got the
like it's
results.
maybe it's possible that he had the offer and he didn't go. I don't know that. But in my opinion, like it's also something that like I can see, um if you get like an offer, a really low offer from a team that you don't like, maybe you talk with the manager, you don't like him, whatever, and you have like a really good life that you really like with a maybe lower level team. I mean, that's also something that I'm not sure if I would take it, because it's like you're 27 years old. It's not like you're working to be a good pro in your 40s. That's the years that you have to live, and
Hmm.
you don't want to be like do 2 years as a pro and then remember your whole life as your worst year. Like you really take shit from everybody for 2 years, and you say, I lived the dream. Like that's not really the dream,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Oh. Well, the hardest part though is finding that extra. Well, at least for me, the hardest part was finding that extra stuff in your life because for the longest time I did not
Yeah,
know what I could do if I was not a pro cyclist. Okay. All right, here. Like I got a good like I got so many questions from your dude, your fans. I've never found someone with a more loyal following. Like maybe you and Julian Alaphilippe. Your fans follow you like the Pope. It's incredible. Like the amount of questions I got for you is okay, so here's one. He recently wrote a blog post about replicating the demands of racing and training. Would like to hear how he implemented that and what do you think about that?
yeah, that's kind of what I said about the doing like the really long days, like the 7 hour days. In my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, it's like the thing is, when you do a race, you maybe have like 4 hours of 350 normalized power and like let's say 4,000 kilojoules, whatever, and then you have to be really good at the end of that. And it's really difficult to replicate in training like exactly the same. So to do that amount of time spent in high zone in 4 hours, because then you would kill yourself because you train super hard every time. But if you implement that same amount of work in let's say in a 7 hour ride, so you end a 7 hour ride with the same time spent in the higher zones, but it's just like more diluted during the ride. Maybe you do a coffee stop, whatever. It's like a much more controlled way of doing the same amount of work. In my opinion, that's as specific as you can get, because you put a strain on the muscles in the way that you would do in a race, but you do it much more controlled, much less stress on the body, because you have also, like, if you do a VO2 effort and then you do 30 minutes of easy riding, also the adrenaline that you have, it goes down by a lot. It probably also, like, it's better for your mitochondria, let's say, because you have less acidic environment, all that kind of stuff. But then in the end of the day, you put the same strain on the muscles because you reach that point of, let's say, low energy, like low glycogen availability, whatever. So what I do is just I do some 7 hour days, which, as I said before, it's not like people say, you don't have to race a 7 hour race, so it's no point in doing 7 hours. But the thing is, if I do 7 hours like that, I can maybe get to replicate what I do in a 4 hour race. If I had to replicate a 7 hour race, I would have to do 12 hours of training, because what you
Uh-huh.
reach in the end of those races is like, you're really, really fucked. When I do a gravel race, which is more than 6 hours, I know that the last half hour I would be like really cramping, zero glycogen left, just surviving. And I don't want to be there in training once a week. But if you can replicate what you do in a 4 hour race, then it's probably good enough to have like a good endurance. The problem is, if you do 4 hours in training, then you don't even get close to what you would have to what happens in the end of a 4 hour race, because with a 4 hour training, the kilojoules and the time spent in high zones is so much lower. So that's not even comparable to me. To Like, I remember I used to think I have a good durability because I could do 10 minutes at a really good power after 4 hours in training, and then I realized, like, 4 hour easy, it's like a rest day. It's not putting enough strain on the muscles to consider it being durable. If you do 4 hours with race
Mm-hmm.
efforts, then yes, but 4 hour easy, it's not considering it's not considerable being having a good durability.
No, I agree with that. Okay. So then what are like the pillars of your training that you think are the most important right now? So it's these 7 hour rides, heat training, these threshold blocks. Is there anything else? Am I missing anything else?
Um, yeah, I'm thinking. I don't think there is much much else. Like, one thing that I cannot miss out. Um, I think that's about it. And then consistency. Like, I try to never go below 20 hours in a week, because I know that every time I
Mm-hmm.
have like a lower hours week, then the week after I always like my performance goes down. So sometimes you need to have like I was thinking about this the other day. Like, sometimes you think, what's the point of doing 2 extra hours in a, let's say, like, you have a rest day. What is the difference between doing zero and doing 2 hours? Many people think like, just do zero. It's 2 hours is doing nothing. But then if you think about the total volume of the week, 2 hours is like 10%. So if somebody would tell you,
Mm-hmm.
like, do you think if I remove 10% of your volume, you will stay as good as you are? You would probably say no. Sure, 10% is a lot. And then, okay, then why you do 0 hours if you could do two and still be as good as you are with zero the day after? And I'm not saying that you have to always ride two in the rest days, because sometimes, it's not the same doing those 2 hours as a two extra on a long day. It's much better in terms of endurance stimulus compared to doing them on a rest day. But the point is, like, sometimes you think, okay, I have six. What is the point of doing the extra hour? I think six is good enough. But then you miss, 5% of the week, and then the week after you're because we are talking about marginal. It's not like one day you wake up and you have 400 watts FTP, the day after you have 360. We're talking about, if you have 400 watts FTP and one day you feel bad at 390, you think, what is wrong with me? And 390 compared to 400 is like, such a small percentage, is like whatever, 2%, 2.5%. And you think, okay, then why? you didn't make the effort to do 10% more volume last week when you could. So it's something that I always try to be really consistent. And like, for example, when we did the race in New York in the afternoon, I went and did 2 hours, zone two extra, because the race was only 3 hours. And like, also, I didn't know if it was like a smart thing to do or it was stupid. But then while I was riding, I thought like, okay, if I was not riding now, I would just be at home, like texting on my phone or whatever. So like, at least by doing this, I have the chance that maybe next week, I have the 10% more volume this week. So maybe next week I will be a bit better. And now this week I'm doing like some of my best numbers ever. For sure, it's not those 2 hours alone, but it could be by a small percentage also those 2 extra hours, because I know for a fact that if I go and look back in my training when I have like the 15-hour week instead of 20, then the week after I always suffer a bit. So it's not the one time, but it's something that if you repeat it week after week after week, for me it's a big difference. So I would say that is one of the main part about my training, is trying to be consistent with the hours, and don't skip the just be consistent.
Okay. You're making me feel lazy.
No,
Do you,
but
do
the
you
thing,
ride 2 hours on all your rest days?
no, that's the thing. Like, it depends, because sometimes I have a 30-hour week, and I know that on the rest days
Oh
I can
boy.
just rest. But for example,
Okay.
like that day I did the 2 hour extra because I knew the day after we would have to fly, so it would be 0 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And the third day
Yeah, that
we
makes
had the
sense.
flight, so it was already 0 hours. So I thought, okay, like 2 hours in this context is important. If it's a 30-hour week, I don't write a 2 hour extra, because I know it's already like a big stimulus that week, so I don't really need those two. But if it's 18 hours, to make from 18 to 20, in my opinion, is it can be quite a big difference. And I don't want to say it's a one-way rule, because of course if you're completely fucked, those 2 hours will only make it worse. But sometimes people, they feel good and they say like, I don't do the last hour because I'm bored, I want to go home. Six is enough. What is the point of doing one extra? But in the end, in my opinion, what it makes you good is like that extra 20% that you do on top of being already high volume. That's what makes you good in terms of endurance. So sometimes you have to, let's say, make the boring hours, put the boring hours in. But if you already have a big week, then it's a completely different story, because then you're already reaching that level of endurance stimulus, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with all of that. Okay. Hmm. All right, next question.
Yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yes. Okay, and if you don't want to answer any of these questions, just tell me to skip it. But
No.
do you feel like you've been thrown under the bus after being invited to Zwift Academy selection twice?
No, I have to say, like, also something I wanted to tell about this. Like, for me, Zwift Academy has been like the first time I did it, it was only good, because even if I didn't win, it made me spend time with some World Tour pros, gave me a lot of good publicity, so it was like completely positive experience. Second time, I thought it would be the same, so I thought like I have nothing to lose, even if I go there and they don't take me. It's still like time, time on a
Yeah,
really
you
good,
talked
good,
me into
good.
trying this.
Yeah, no, but exactly. But I think
You're the
it's
reason I did it.
yeah. Even if you go to the final and you don't win, it's I thought like, okay, it's still time that people talk about you and that kind of stuff. The only thing that I didn't
Hmm.
like is that when they cut they did the final episode, they kind of cut a lot of parts out to make me look like I was really shit compared to the guy that won. And I tell just one because I didn't want to make, at first I was super angry. I wanted to make like a post or whatever. Then I thought, okay, like I don't want to be the guy who, complains because he didn't reach the grapes, you know what I mean? So I just say, okay, I
Yeah, yeah.
just shut up about that. But for example, like the first day we did a threshold test, which was like, normal lactate test with steps. And then on top of that, we did a 4-minute maximal effort. And like my threshold was 40 watts higher than the guy who eventually won. And like, 40 watts in the
Okay.
World Tour level is a huge difference. And
A
then
lot.
on the
Yeah.
maximal step, we did the same watts because it was like a 3.5 minute effort. And the other guy is really good. I'm not saying like he didn't deserve it, because like this week in New York City, we were racing together and you could see he's a good racer. He's the guy who deserves the champ. But in my opinion, and they completely cut out the part of the threshold test. They just show, the two guys are really similar because they did the same watt in the 3.5 minute effort in the end. So they are same level. But in my opinion, if you want to take a talent with Zwift Academy, which is an academy based on only engine, like you should look more at the threshold power, 30, 40 minute power, whatever. Because if the selection process with Jay Vine would have been the same, of taking like 3-minute effort and go-kart track racing, then for sure he would not be a pro now. And he is like probably the best one among all the Alpes in like Zwift Academy guy up to date. So the only thing that I can say is I'm disappointed that they didn't take me, and I think it was the wrong decision. But I don't regret trying it this year. I think the only bad thing was to kind of cut the scene in a way that made me look like like I really didn't deserve
You're
to
the bad
win.
guy.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean,
Oh no.
like I don't really regret doing it again, because that also gave me a bit of confidence more, because I when I was there, I saw that many of the guys in the team, they were like really they told me like, I'm really sorry that I didn't take you on last year. When I was trading with them, I was like, talking to them, made friend with some of them, and I think it was a nice experience. And I don't regret going there and doing the final, to be honest. And but I think, like, if I can be pro, or like, but in the normal way, it will give me much more satisfaction that with Zwift Academy. Also because like every time there is one guy who wins Zwift Academy, people say, ah, we will see how good they are in the group. We will see what is the result. They always put a screenshot of the PCS like page, and they say, look, this guy has no results. It's a joke. So if I want to be pro, I want to be like with a good pro cycling stats page, so that people cannot complain about that. You know.
Yeah. Oh, preach. Okay. Here, another question. Can you talk about how to come back from overtraining and low hematocrit levels?
Oh,
Well, I have my thoughts on this, but this is a question for you.
yeah, yeah. Something that I think my idea about the blood values thing is that, like, if you train normally, let's say you don't do any really really crazy stuff, but like
Uh-huh.
like a state race, or something that can put like an enormous amount of stress on your body. The only way you can get your blood values much lower than average is by undereating, in my opinion. And that's what happened in my experience. Like, I've tried doing 35,
Yep.
40 hours a week and having my hematocrit stay exactly the same because I ate enough. And in my opinion, the two things that really, let's say, take their toll on hormones, and so also on the blood values in the end, is the overall stress. So if you do a lot of intensity, that contributes to the stress. So, and again, that can also be like life-related stress and intensity on top of that, whatever. But in my opinion, the intensity is dangerous in those sort of things, but the volume is not. So
Mhm.
if you are in a situation like that, what I would advise is, instead of just resting, which is what normal people would say, try to like keep the volume but reduce the intensity to a minimum, like almost to zero, maybe zero. Like sometimes I give a week to my athletes that I call aerobic week, and it's just zone two every day, like the most boring stuff. It's like 20 hours of zone two and nothing else. And 90% of times on the other side of that week, people have their normal values back. Like, I don't know in terms of blood, but for sure in terms of what. So I guess also the blood, um, the blood values comes up to normal. And if it's not stress related, so intensity related, it's probably under eating related. And then the solution is simple. Just try to match the calories. And yeah, these are the two things that for me really are dangerous. For the rest, I think like now I do more hours than I've ever done, and my blood values are probably even better than they were when I was under 23. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
I agreed. My thoughts. Well, like I agree with the intensity part of it, where it's like it's pretty hard to. I agree with the intensity part of it, but other than that, it's like, man, if you eat enough and your sleep is okay, like I get very skeptical when people talk
Yeah,
about overtraining. I'm like, really? Is this really a is this a physiological
yeah,
problem or a mental problem here? Because
exactly.
and really all you have to do is like if you just eat enough, like eat more, train more. Because if you don't sleep, you're not going to be able to train. So okay, and like I have my ridiculous or like controversial opinion where it's like overtraining is not real between the age of 17 and 24 years old.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like okay, when you start to get older and you have real life stressors and your hormones go down a little bit, okay, but it's like if you eat enough and your sleep is okay, I think it's pretty. Like I have spent my life trying as hard as I can to cause overtraining, and it's like at worst I'm just tired, and you just rest for a couple days, and then you feel great. But yeah, if you don't sleep, you're not going to be able to train. So all you got to do is make sure you eat enough. Like the real cases of overtraining, like every example I've ever thought of, is just when people try to start like are starving themselves.
Yeah,
It's like okay, that is
I
real,
agree.
but if you're not doing that, I think it's pretty tough. The intensity part, like if you just did ridiculous intensity all the time, that is another part I would add to it.
Yeah, and then also it's maybe not controversial, but it's a concept that not many people talk about. But I'm more and more sure about that. Is that like the easy volume? It's not only like safe, but it also protects you from the stress that intensity and whatever else gives you because it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. So in my opinion, like if you do, for example, let's say you do I don't know, 3 times 10 minutes, 40 20s, whatever, any intervals at VO2 max that you could do. Straight after you do them, if you stop, for example, let's say you have a coffee stop, you feel like it's a weird feeling because you feel really tired, but your heart rate is super high. You feel kind of, the adrenaline is still rushing. It's like a really, you feel like when you almost have a car crash and that you just avoided at the last moment. That's the only way I can describe it.
Mm-hmm.
You have that crazy rush of adrenaline, but you also know that it will later it will crash down and you will feel like shit. And something that always helps me is I finish a VO2 session or whatever. I do 2, 3 hours of zone two. I go back home and I feel as if I didn't do any session. And I sleep really good. I recover good. And if I just got home after the VO2 sessions, then I know the whole afternoon I will feel like really I have high adrenaline and stuff, but then I go to sleep, I sleep like shit, and the day after I feel like shit. So in my opinion, like the volume is not only safer, but it also protects you from the intensity. So that's why many people can get overtrained on a 8, 7 hour week program, whatever, because they just do intensity every day. They never have that volume that kind of brings down the
Mm-hmm.
hormones. So they have like super high adrenaline straight after training, and then they have this crash. They cannot rest properly. So that's more dangerous to me. But if you do those 15 hours easy on top, like around the 5 hours of intensity, it kind of protects the body much more. So also something that I really don't like is when my athletes they have to do like 3 races a week because their team wants them to, and then they do 3 races and then you have to give them like rest the day after, rest the day before, like or really easy. And in my opinion, it's just like you have all this stress, but you never kind of release it because you have stress, stress, stress. The races is even worse because you have like the intensity related stress on top of the group related and technical whatever stress. So it's like super high stress. You never have time to recover. So if it was me, but I know it's also difficult because you have to make a compromise between what you want to do and what the athlete feels like he should do. And like if I had to race 3 times a week, I would do any other day I will do at least 3 hours of really, really easy training. I'm talking 200 watts, but something that can just helps you to release all the stress. And it works for me. It works better than doing nothing in the middle. So that's also something that I think it's important to prevent, that overtraining.
That's a really good point. I really like that yeah. And I think that applies to a lot of people where it's like if you only have 8 hours a week to train and you only did all intensity, your point on how the volume brings your hormones down. I really like that point. I learned so much on this podcast.
No, that's good.
Okay.
I think
Sick,
like
buddy.
many things that I've said is, they're not like scientific study proved, so it's just an idea. But that's also something that, something that I don't like about some coaches, or people that I really respect because they know so much more than I could ever know, is that they try to
Mm-hmm.
coach really high level athletes based on the what is written on the peer-reviewed studies. But the thing is,
Yeah.
the peer-reviewed study is like the average of the average of the average of a average athlete, because always it's really rarely done on elite athletes. And even when it's done on elite, it's never like on the Tour de France winner. It's always like, kind of 70 view to max, but maybe it's average elite, so it's not like super top level. And you know, like if you want to try to be in the 0.001% of the world, you have to do something extra on top of what works for the average, because otherwise you just rely on your talent. Because of course, if you do what the average studies say, and you do everything that it works for the average person, you just become the average person, well trained. But yeah, in my opinion, it's, you kind of have to take that as a base and then try to build on top of that with your training philosophy. And sometimes it's just, you try things and you think like, for sure this is good. Then you try, you feel like shit for 5 days, and you think like, why am I so stupid? And I cannot just train like normal people. But then sometimes I do an 8 hour day, 2 days after I'm flying, and I think like, I'm a god of training. Like I figured everything out. And of course, it's never like one or the other opposite. It's always like, sometimes you have to experiment to be able to reach the point where like the average peer-reviewed protocol cannot bring you, because yeah, it's done on it's been done to fit in a laboratory in a controlled manner for 10 hours a week. And what you want to do is being the 0.01% of the world. So you have to try to push yourself over that. And that's why athletes like Killian, for me, it's like I respect him so much, because he's like constantly listening to his body, trying to figure out new stuff, confronting with the scientific literature, but always like one step further of that. And I think that's so important, because I think I never saw Killian saying, I read it in a study, so I did it. It's always like, I did it, it worked, so then I went in the lab and then I figured out why it worked. And that's so much better for me, because that's how you create like the protocols to be on the edge of performance. Otherwise, you're just, trying to fit in the average protocol and hopefully being a good average athlete. So I think that's kind of, yeah, that's why the whole not really relying too much on the literature thing.
I love it. Yeah. And hey, I love listening to that with Killian as well. You got time for one more?
Yeah, let's do one more, and then I have to go 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, then you got to go. Okay, cool. All right. So, like, this is my question then. This is one of the ones that was sent to me. Like, what's the most controversial opinion you have on training? Because, like, just to give you some context for it, like, to give you an idea, like, mine is that when it comes to training and like a performance team and stuff like that, I benefit the most from the people who are like the data nerds, the marginal gains. They look at every like the Johnny Wales and all these people where they look at all this stuff all the time. I benefit the most from those people because they love to focus on this stuff and I don't. But or I do, but just not like on their level for it. But like where I end up fighting them a lot on this kind of stuff is like when you're asking to like, let's do this and let's like add in all these little things that it's like, this is 1%, 1%, like where I always end up like fighting them and arguing them and not wanting to do this stuff is because I always try to push back on like, no, I just want to focus on doing the basics better. Like, and
Yeah,
maybe part of it is just me being lazy with it, but I'm just like, I don't know. I think that I still have more to gain on doing the basics better here. And these things you're asking me to do are a distraction for that. And just to give you like I'm being very silly here. This is not really a serious thing, but like for like how many of my friends try to convince me to do like all this waxing chain stuff because they get obsessed with taking their chain off and cleaning it in their kitchen and stuff like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
mate, if you have the energy left over to be taking your chain off your bike once a week to put it in the wax and all this, it's like you should just train harder. Like you should just go
Yeah.
train harder so you don't have the energy to do this. I think it's like that. That's the silly example, but I think that's probably the most not controversial, but it's like I gain the most from the people that love to
Yeah.
focus on that stuff because they love doing it and I don't, and it absolutely helps me, and that's my biggest weakness that I don't focus on that stuff as much. But where I end up fighting them a lot more is like when you're asking me to do all these marginal gain things, and it's like I feel like this is taking away from just focusing and doing the basics better. That's like one of my
Yeah.
more controversial opinions. How about for you?
Yeah, no, I agree on that one. I think the difficult thing is how you define basics. Because, for example, like, aerodynamics used to be a
Eat,
marginal gain.
sleep, train.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
for
fair
example,
enough.
like
Good point.
aerodynamic used to be a marginal gains. Now it's one of the basics because efficient you can do all the watts in the world and you're not gonna be able to do a breakaway, for example. So I agree on that, but
Right.
the difficult part is to understand what is the basics. And I think like my
Yeah.
controversial opinion is kind of that same wavelength because I think like I could do a whole year of training without one structured workout, like without any interval based on time or whatever, and I think it would be the same. Like I could just go and target KOMs and do the hours and just I mean look at the power meter, yes, because I think it helps you to understand which way your shape is going and if you like if you are on a good day or not. But in my opinion, like I never ever look, for example, when there's all those pages who are like sharing the pros workouts. I don't care about that. I don't care about which type of VO2 max intervals people are doing because I know that in the end, it's all like just a fancy way to do one thing that I can just do by doing a 5 minute KOM and then do another 5 minute KOM and then doing a 4:45 one and it's the same stimulus and what really matters is all the rest, so like the overall volume, how you feel on the day, like what the nutrition on the day, how well you're fueled, then the durability you have, the heat training, whatever, all that stuff. But the structure interval, like X time at X watts, for me it's just you know like people used to think that it's a specific thing, but for me it's not specific because the races are like the most unpredictable way. Like you never do X power for X time. It's always like X power, then a little bit more, a little bit less, then coasting, then a little bit more, then less, then attacking, then waiting, then so like it's not really specific. It's the opposite of specific. Like specific is, bringing your muscles to that point that you reach in the end of the race, like I said, or like doing that, bringing your central system to that amount of oxygen consumption that you want to be able to hold in a race. So that is specific, but the amount of power for the amount of time is not specific because you don't know what you're gonna do in the race. So in my opinion, like the most controversial thing is you don't need to to focus on that kind of stuff, but more on the like macro periodization of the week. So it's really important to like what I think I can give as a coach is to say this day you need to do threshold, and even if you feel a little bit tired, let's try to do some threshold work. Even if you say I don't feel so good, then lower the watts. But this is one of the days that we have to make it count. And on other days, I say, okay, today is one of the days when you have to rest. And even if you feel good, you need to go easy. That's what I can give as a coach. But if you do 55 minutes of threshold instead of 40 plus 20, whatever, it's changing like so little that I don't care. I don't even, if I see an athlete that does the same amount of work divided differently, I don't see anything because I don't care. It's not a problem. But if I see an athlete that on threshold day is doing just easy, then I'm always like, either you will feel really shit or I don't understand why you did it. So yeah.
Okay, here. I did say like what the last quick question because I just thought of this while you were saying that. And like I'm being a bit
Yeah.
silly here, but I think you'll like this. Is like okay, so if you had to go training for like the rest of the year or whatever, and you could only pick one, would you rather have Spotify or your power meter? Because I'm picking Spotify.
Oh, okay, that's a difficult one. No, I would say power meter because like
Oh, you're such a
for
dork.
me, Yeah, but for me,
I need DMX and Eminem.
I like the let's say performance aspect a lot, and like for me, sometimes looking at the power is also what really helps me to go through a ride. Like when I have to go like a big day, I really like to say like,
Mhm.
okay, here I want to do 280 for an hour or whatever. In this time I want to do 320, whatever. And then what makes me go through the ride is that, and now if I think like I have to do a 7 hour ride without power meter, I think like, what am I gonna do for 7 hours? I don't even know. Like
Look at your
I
heart
don't.
rate.
Yeah, but it's not the same, and also it's not. I don't know. It's just something that it really helps me to go through a ride to see the power. It's like a I don't know. It's a instant feedback, similar to probably what would be like the speed in a car, or I don't know. But it's something like I don't know if you have to race a car on the track without being able to see the speed. I don't know, something like that. It's really
Yeah, but
weird,
come
and
on. Hey. If you're driving your car and Danger Zone comes on the radio, you're gonna drive faster. That's my point with this. Or like
no,
Freebird comes over the radio, you're gonna drive faster. That's my point. Like if you want me to train well, it's like I just need to have 10 out of 10 mojo, and like I'm gonna train
yeah,
better
yeah,
this way
yeah. No, I'm
versus
not
like staring at
saying.
the number.
No, I'm not saying exact. I think like the numbers they help you to go through the ride, especially when you have to go like mid-zone. When I go full gas, I don't really like to
Mm-hmm.
stare at the power meter because I also agree that sometimes you don't look at the power meter and you go harder than you could think. But for example, like if I have to do a threshold effort of 1 hour and I don't have the power, then I would be like, I don't know, distracted, I think. Like not being able to really get into the zone and do 1 hour, I would be like, okay, that feels too hard, I will stop. So yeah, I think power meter. I would
Yeah.
still take power meter over Spotify.
Okay. Well, good. Good. We'll end the podcast there then. We both got to go have dinner.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Sick, buddy.
Thanks, man. It was nice.
That's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed Mattia. And as always, if you like the podcast, I just hope you share it. That's the only ask. Cheers.